Okay, so we'll just get started. The first question is, what does a typical day in your shoes look like?
Oh, wait, actually, before that, can everybody just introduce themselves really generally before we get into the questions? So you all can just unmute and speak whenever you feel like. I don't know who's ever going to be like brave to speak first, but you can all just, there's no specific order at all.
I can go first. Hi, my name is Sreeya. I'm currently a software engineer at a startup slash mid-sized company called Drift based in Boston. I'm currently at my parents' house though in New York, which is why my walls are pink and there's Taylor Swift in the back. And yeah, I graduated from Northeastern in May 2019, and I am also part of the leadership team or the founding team of Tech Together, which is similar to this organization in that we provide opportunities for college-aged and also high school and new grads and people who are switching careers, provide them opportunities similar to this to get involved in computer science and tech and coding. So yeah, happy to be here and happy to answer any questions.
I can go next. Hi guys, I'm Alayna. I graduated from University of Wisconsin-Madison in 2018, and I am working at Intuit as a design technologist. So basically, design technologist is a hybrid role between the design and the production engineering team. We work primarily with designers to make web-based prototypes for demos or user testing. And we help kind of like bridge that gap between the design and the development team.
I can go next. I'm Devki. I graduated from Cornell this past May with a degree in computer science. And then I started a role as a TPM, a technical program manager at Google in July. So just started first job. It's all about the CS journey.
Hi, I'm Pam. I can go next. My name is Pam Jasper, and I graduated from Penn State with a degree in information systems over 30 years ago. I currently run a technology consulting firm where we provide trust for artificial intelligence ethics-based applications. So I've created an AI ethics framework called FAIR, which I use with my clients to help them to not only adapt and integrate ethical, anti-biased artificial intelligence frameworks, but also to audit those AI practices once their products are in production. So I'm a technology manager with 30 years of experience designing front office trading and middle office risk systems. My background is in working with Wall Street firms, banks, stock exchanges in New York, Tokyo, London, and Germany. In addition to that, I'm a pilot. I fly fixed wing airplanes, and I'm flying helicopters as of lately. And I've run aviation career camps that brought in groups of young people to expose them to careers in aviation. And lastly, I'll say I ran something that I thought was cool called a Santa Copter joint, which is a helicopter with an onboard Santa Claus who's an NFL player, and we land at hospitals. And I'm the CEO and chief Santa chick, and I give him a script, and his lines are, Santa's lines are ho ho ho. That's it. So there's ways of being innovative and creative and fun while working in STEM, traditionally male-dominated aerospace, Boeing is my sponsor. Sikorsky is my sponsor. But we have a good time doing it.
I love that so much. That's so great. Okay, thank you all for introducing yourselves, and I'm so sorry about the mix-up. Okay, so now we'll get on to the first question, and it is, what does a typical day in your shoes look like?
Anyone can feel free to answer and just unmute when you want to start talking.
I can go first again. Yeah, so a typical day in my shoes is mainly just writing code. I focus on back-end engineering, which is like, how do we get the data? How do we send that to the front end? How do we store that data? And yeah, Drift is a chatbot company, or it's a B2B chatbot company to help sales and marketing people get more leads, close more deals in their pipeline. So yeah, mainly just like writing code. How do we design these large scale systems, like architecture reviews. And also what's pretty cool about Drift is the engineers are pretty close to the customers. So getting on customer calls and sales calls and figuring out what the pain points are with our customers, how do they like our features, and sort of like taking that knowledge and bringing that into how we design and like code the whole architecture, and how, yeah, we like build the product and create a more customer centric experience for them.
I was also thinking, I was like, what else do I do besides writing code? Because I feel like it is a perception that, you know, like if you work in tech, like you do write a lot of code, and you do, but it is also very collaborative. So for my team, I sit on a team of other design technologists, but often we work on projects by ourselves, like with another design team. So we don't work together as often. So we're not doing like daily stand-ups or anything, because we're all kind of doing our own thing. Mostly for me, I'm writing code. I'm checking in with the design team that I'm working with. But lately I have been working on a team with other design technologists. So then we'll have like sync meetings, or I'm helping a more junior member of my team with like some code issues. So we'll Zoom and chat about that. But yeah, otherwise I do, especially right now because we're in like the holiday season. It's a bit more quiet. A lot of people are on vacation. I do have a lot of nice like headspace just to write code, which is really nice.
I can go next. So I guess like a TPM is kind of very hybridy between like a software engineer and a program manager. And especially like being at Google, which is a really big company, they give you like the flexibility to choose like how tech you want to be. And because I did like CS in college and I did past software engineering internships, I don't want to like completely let go of like the technical side. So I feel like my day is like definitely a lot of me. I run an education team within Google. So we're constantly trying to make the programs better. So it's like a lot of meetings and like interacting with stakeholders and sponsors. And then I get to like write code as well. And then a lot of data analysis, because like being on an EDU team, you want to see like, oh, like what do people think of these programs, and like how do we iterate on it and make it better? Yeah.
I can go next. So I guess right now, as the CEO of my firm, you know, we just started this new push into AI ethics as of this year. A lot of my day-to-day duties involve, they vary and they can change from day to day. So I'm no longer doing any actual coding per se, although I did do that in my 20s. Now it's more collaborative on building relationships with other organizations, specifically organizations in AI and AI ethics. I'm applying for a fellowship. AI ethics, AI is not new to the industry or to the world, but it's beginning to proliferate because of a few different enablers. Big data is one, high tech and high-end computing is another, and high-end algorithms. And those three things have collided to make AI much more ubiquitous in our day-to-day world. But because of that, and because of a variety of other reasons, AI has and can contain bias in its data. So what I do is I work with firms to ensure that they have governance models and processes. So what is governance? Governance is approval. What is a process? A framework. A framework is a set of processes. So I make sure that they have the right tools, processes, people in place at the right point of AI life cycle and of their governance to ensure and mitigate against bias risks, because AI bias is a risk to the firm. You know, Google created Google Photos, which in 2015 mistakenly categorized two Black software engineers as gorillas. I'm African American. That's unacceptable. So Google, I think, has retracted the software, but the underlying processes and code and algorithms that created it, I'm told, have not been resolved. So that's an example, a vivid example of what can go wrong, and how a firm can not only lose their reputation, but be subject to lawsuits. So I protect firms from that. I make pitches to clients. I'm presenting at research. I've published a research paper that I'm presenting on Monday at a very prestigious AI conference. So I present at NeurIPS conferences. I'm on podcasts, getting the word out, and building awareness in terms of not only AI, but AI ethics. I think yesterday or this week, a colleague of mine, Timnit Gebru, was fired by Google, and so she's, that action is building awareness around AI. And what is AI ethics? Everyone's asking me, oh, now I know what you do. Now I know what you do. Well, that's what we do. And finally, day-to-day client work, making sure that they have the proper policies and procedures. When I was a tech manager, my job was a bit different. I would manage programmers, meet with end users, capture their business requirements, document business requirements into business requirements documentation, functional specifications, work with training to ensure that they're proper training plans. So managing the entire life cycle of the development. And finally, as a pilot, we go out to the airport, do a pre-flight, file a flight plan with the FAA, make sure we got enough gas in the tank, the proper gas, the proper tank, pull out our maps, talk to air traffic controllers, talk to ground control, ready for takeoff.
That's super great. I loved all of your answers. Okay, so the next question is, what is the most rewarding part of your job? And what was the biggest challenge you faced as you pursued your career? And how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I think the most rewarding part of my job is, so Drift we're about like 380 people now. We were like 250, 280 when I first joined like a year and a half ago. So just seeing like how much we've grown over the past year and a half, and also like when I started at Drift, we were only about like 3 or 4 years old. So just like being part of the growth of a company, like we have really small teams too in engineering. Like my team only has 3 engineers, including the tech lead. So yeah, just like you get a lot of ownership in the things that you work on. We ship code almost every day. So getting to see like the business impact of your work is super rewarding as well. And to answer your second question, I believe it was, what's the most challenging part of your day?
Yeah, what was the biggest challenge you faced as you pursued your career?
Yeah, so there's definitely been a lot of challenges. I mean, there's imposter syndrome, which we've all probably heard about and face on a daily basis. And a lot of times when you're early on in your career, especially as a minority or as a woman, specifically, like sometimes people don't take you as seriously as other people, or like speak over you in meetings, or sometimes have your ideas repeated as their ideas. So yeah, I think it's always hard and discouraging when you encounter experiences like that. I've also been in a meeting with like a bunch of dudes, or like I was the only woman, a lot of dudes, and they all ignored me or spoke over me, which is just like super hard. Like it's hard enough as is to be the only woman or the only person of color or the only minority in the room, but for them to not take you as seriously is definitely hard. And it's something that comes with practice and something I'm still working on since I'm still very early on in my career. Is to definitely like, it takes a lot of experience to have the attention in the room or attention on a call diverted towards you, like being able to speak up and not have that phase you. I think that always phases you. But yeah, I think just as minorities or as an ally in the tech industry, like when you see that, if you're in a meeting and you see that sort of behavior, like diverting attention back to the person who was maybe spoken over and being like, hey, so and so had a good idea, or this is what this person said. I think I'm lucky enough to have had managers or mentors or allies who have done that for me in meetings. Like, oh, this is what Sreeya said, like let's focus back on what she said and not like move on to another topic. And I'm also lucky enough to have had women managers or people of color, Black managers who have told me like this is how I have gotten through this. And I still, like one of my directors, he was like, yeah, I still face this kind of stuff in the industry. And this is how I like divert attention back to myself. So having a mentor like that or a manager like that who gets where I'm coming from is really important as well. That was really long and rambly answer, but
Great. I think it's something that we can like all sort of relate to. So I like that answer.
yeah.
I can go next. For me, so I work on QuickBooks, which is accounting software for small businesses. And I really like getting to meet small business owners in user testing. Sometimes I make a prototype and we test with a bunch of different customers, and like getting to hear about like their background and experiences is always really cool. Small business owners, I can't imagine honestly having a small business. Like I think it would be really tough, and they work like so hard and they have so many cool, unique ideas. And Intuit also brings them in for like our company meetings, or just kind of whenever. Back when we were in person, they would come and hang out in like the atrium of our building and like sell their products to us, and we could talk to them, and it was really cool. As far as challenges, so I've been really fortunate that this is the first job that I've had out of college, and it's been really awesome. I have a really diverse team, and I actually interned on this team prior, so I knew that this would be a good fit for me. I think the challenge for me was getting to this point. When I was in college, I went to a state school, which was a pretty good computer science program, but nothing like MIT, Harvard kind of levels. And I had really ambitious dreams of like wanting to work for like a big company in the Bay Area, and getting to that point was tricky because I think I applied at more than 50 places one year for an internship. I heard back from maybe a few of them, but you just need like one interview to go well, or like one application process. So thankfully that worked out for me, and it's been really good.
Yeah, I would say like most rewarding part is like I've always wanted to work education. In high school and in college. I was like super with code.org and the Hour of Code initiative, as well as like Girls Who Code, student in the program, and then I became a TA one summer. So definitely just like really into the education space. So I was happy to find something like full time where I could continue that like interest of mine, as like while also being in tech. So definitely love that part. As far as like the most challenging part, it's definitely like having to graduate and start a new job in the middle of a pandemic. Starting remote is like, it's really difficult, especially like going from like college where you're like in a class all day and being expected to just like ramp up into like a brand new role that you've never done before. And I think like, but the best part for me, I think, has been like having friends and like colleagues that are also in like a similar boat, and just having that support system. But yeah, it's nothing like when you like at least when I did like internships, I would spend like at least like a week or two ramping up, and someone would like literally sit by my side and tell me what to do. And I'm like a very visual learner in that way, and I like just being like shown how things are done, and that's how I learn. So just like being kind of like the rest of my like teammates, and actually like I'm on an international team, so a lot of my teammates are in Europe, so like being across the world from them is difficult, but it's been a cool experience and very, very thankful for it.
Hi, my name is Pam again. I think for me, in terms of what's rewarding in my career, is not only so much the specifics of what I do, but it's broadly being able to have the agency to dream up of an idea, have an idea, present that to a problem, and then see that idea manifested as a solution to that problem, whatever that problem is, if it's for a client, if it's for a community, if it's for, an industry. So I find it rewarding to, it's almost a Zen sort of a thing. I believe that you can find, I think that you can find enjoyment in anything that you do. I think that if you paint a wall, you can put all of your energy and attention into that one action and really create something beautiful, no matter what your job is. If it's creating code, if it's leading a presentation, my recommendation, and I know that wasn't the question, but to everyone, is to always do your best. And again, it's a Buddhist sort of a Zen principle that you put all of your conscious energy into what's in front of you right now. And that as you give your energy or your love and your attention to it, and I know love is not a technical term, I don't use it in boardrooms. I used it in a job interview once, whatever. You put all of your attention to something, it will reflect it. Your work will speak for yourself, and it will speak for you in rooms where you're not in the room to speak. I don't like the term minority, because statistically Blacks are not a minority. But as an African-American woman, I've experienced a lot of discrimination Not because so much men or people who aren't Black don't take me seriously, but probably because they do take me seriously and recognize, wow, you know, she can really do this. Or in corporate structures, it's very competitive in the corporate world. And so I can be sensed as a threat. But I find that one way of you know, one of the things that I've used, tools that I've used to overcome that is to make sure that my work is 120%. It's excellent. And I think that that also, I think that many other women do that as well. I think that that's what fuels this sense of an imposter syndrome. People, you know, women think, oh, you know, if I'm not 100%, I'm not going to be good enough. And it's because we're in environments where men mostly criticize. If you bring them 99%, they'll criticize the 1%. But if a guy brings 50 or 40%, hey, dude, let's go grab a beer, and his work is accepted. And the same goes for race. So, you know, there's a reason why imposter syndrome is there. It's not like, you know, you just woke up and became crazy. But nonetheless, giving your all, you know, regardless of the pressures to adhere to some sort of perfection standard, nothing is perfect. However, I think that when you focus on your work, you can really enjoy it. Yeah. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say, I think Sreeya, you had mentioned other people, you know, repeating what you said. One of the projects that I have is I'm writing a book about President Obama and women. I'm interviewing 44 women who worked with Obama in his private life and in the White House, and I'm calling it the Obama Chicks. And one of the things that the women in the Obama White House did was they did something in 2014, 2013, you can Google this. They started creating, because when Obama walked in, it was a very bro culture. But after Obama left the White House, it's a very feminist culture. Obama was our first feminist president. And so they did this practice called amplification, where, you know, if Mary's in a room with Jack and Bill, and Jack says, the problem is ABC, and Mary says, the solution is DEF, Bill would say, you know what, the solution is DEF. And Bill and Jack would go, yeah, that's great, Bill. How'd you think of that? Instead, now what happens is Mary and Sally and Jack and Bill are in the room. When Mary says, the solution is DEF, Sally says, Mary just said the solution is DEF. And then Barbara chimes in, Mary just said the solution is. So we have to learn how to have each other's back. You know, to do that, though, again, there are challenges because the corporate world is very competitive. There's this perception of a lack of resources. And that's why I go back to a Zen Buddhist mentality, an abundance mentality, to when we you know, when we aren't afraid of our colleagues, when we believe that the best is coming to us, no matter what you see as evidence, you don't need to be afraid of a woman colleague, and you can amplify her, you can boost each other up. But I mean, it goes across the board, across race. We really should just support everyone on the team.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
Okay, awesome. I love those responses. Those were really amazing. And I just wanted to ask our next question, because this is something I've also been personally really curious about. But how did you all discover what your career choice was? How did you discover, you know, that this was the field you wanted to go into? Especially computer science and tech are so broad as well. So how did you, you know, find that specific route you wanted to take? And how would you recommend that other people, you know, discover what route they want to take in the computer science field?
Yeah, so I never coded before I got to college, and I actually applied to all my colleges as a biology major, like pre-med, because I wanted to be a doctor because that was my favorite class in high school, but I didn't really have access to computer science in high school or in middle school. So yeah, I got to college and I just took an intro level computer science class to try it out. And I really loved the problem solving aspect of it. I feel like not a lot of other fields, like you have that creativity, or a lot of other subjects in school, you have the opportunity to use like the problem solving building aspects of computer science. I felt like biology was all like memorizing a lot of things. But yeah, I just love like the idea of building your ideas or turning your ideas into something that's like tangible. But yeah, that's how I got first introduced into computer science, was through college. And then I would go to like a lot of hackathons with friends and like build all of our ideas out, which is really fun. And then I got into the startup world. So my first internship co-op was at IBM, so like really big tech company. And then my second one, I worked at a startup in Boston. I really loved like when I was introduced to like the startup scene in Boston, I really loved the idea of like having a large role or like a bigger role in the company and feeling like my work was impacting the business, especially like very early on in your career. So yeah, I just got introduced into the startup world. And yeah, I think when you're trying to figure out what you want to do, I think like we're all, or at least me, I feel like I'm every day still figuring out like what to do. I haven't like nailed down like, oh, this is like my dream job. I think you're always kind of like figuring it out, and you can always like down the line change what you want to do. So I think just being really open-minded as to like the activities that you do in high school and college, like not to pigeonhole yourself into like one activity. Like if you pick up computer science as your major, like don't just do computer science related clubs or go to like computer science related activities. I think like doing other things like arts and like entrepreneurship and just like having a vast exposure to a vast different fields, because what's really cool about computer science is that it can be applied to almost like any other field as well. So just like being like open-minded and yeah, just like trying out new things in college.
Nice. Yeah, I came into college also without never taking like a computer science class. So that like that first class was kind of rough. I really liked it, but it was rough. When I was in high school, I was really interested in math. Like I was on the math team, but I was also really interested in art. And I liked like the logic and problem solving aspects of math, but I also liked the creativity of the art classes. I was fortunate to go to a computer science camp. I think it was the summer before my senior year of high school. And at that camp, one of the topics that we learned about was human computer interaction. And just seeing like, oh, like that is a specific area of tech, like thinking about the design and how people actually are going to interact with the product, but also getting to like write the code. That was something that was super cool to me. So I came into college as a computer science major. And I also ended up minoring in art and taking a bunch of art classes. And that really was really nice for me because a lot of my computer science classes were a struggle. Like I still enjoyed them, but I found a lot more like balance in my life by also being able to do like art stuff. And I ended up interning as like a graphic designer at 2 different jobs. And then I moved on into tech internships. So after I interned at Microsoft, I was in a combination PM and software engineer role. And I was like, yeah, like that was super cool, but I really still want to do something like designy. And I was thinking of doing internships for like a UX designer or something like that. And I was really fortunate to come across Intuit. They actually ended up hiring me as a software engineering intern, but I had I was in contact with their design recruiter, and the design recruiter was able to convert me over to being a design technologist intern. So that was really, really fortunate that I fell into that. I think for anybody that doesn't know like what kind of area they want to go into, I think like talking to people that are in those areas, I would think would be a good approach to that. I still don't know if this is like my forever career, especially because it's kind of a unique role. There are some other companies, like I think Google also has like a UX engineer role, but it's not as much of like prototyping is not as much of a common job everywhere. So I'm not really sure like what I want to do next, but I think this is like a good place to start.
Yeah, similar to Alayna, I did a CS camp before my senior year of high school. I did Girls Who Code, and that's like a 7-week like immersion program that just teaches you like different aspects of CS. And I thought that was really cool. So when I started college at Cornell, they have like a really big computer science department. And I like had no idea like what within computer science I was interested in. So I just like took their intro courses and I realized I really liked them. So I decided to major in CS, and I did like 2 software engineering internships at Microsoft, and I learned like so much. I feel like the learning from work and learning from school, they're both super different, and you learn such different things. But it really like helps you realize like what you like and what you don't like. And I realized like I really like tech, but when it was like time, like my senior year to like pick a full-time job, I wasn't sure if I like wanted to do software engineering or like product management or program management or design. Like I had no idea, but I was like, whatever. Like there's no better time than the present to explore what you want to do. Like I don't think like anyone should be scared about like losing out on an opportunity if they're interested in something else, because I feel like it'll just be a learning experience, whether it's like good or bad, and you'll always be able to find something that you like. And I think it's really important, like plus oneing what Alayna and Sreeya said, to like just explore, and it doesn't always have to go great, but definitely just explore and figure out what you like. And like how Alayna was like, I really liked art and I really like CS, so she was able to like kind of find a balance between the two. That's like super awesome. So yeah, definitely.
I'm Pam. I'll go now. So how did I discover my career choice? I guess like someone just said, you're always in progress. You're always in process. I got interested in computer science back in the 70s in high school, when computers were very, very large machines in the large computer room. And I had a particular computer science teacher recognize my talent and invite me to work, invite me to work with him. And, that helped me to fall in love, not fall in love, but to take an interest in computers. Also in high school, I remember having an affinity for the astronomy club and the astronomy team, and I would conduct astronomy presentations in our planetarium. So I always loved the sky and the stars and anything that was outside of our immediate altitude, if you will. And that led me to pursue computer information systems at the university. Throughout my career, I did things outside of my job. My job was often restricted in some areas or in some ways, being a Black person and being a woman. So when I didn't get the promotions that were afforded to other junior people with lesser talent than me, I took my talents outside and created and pursued and created opportunities outside of the organization. Um, and it's in those areas that I also had the opportunity to really develop my business skills and explore other areas that I'm interested in, like aviation, like nonprofits, like um, alternative healing. Um, and so I would recommend to anyone to, you know, to constantly explore other areas in addition to pursuing a computer science degree or career, um, wherein over the course of your life, you're likely going to synthesize all of your interests. So, you know, for me, perhaps one ideal would be pitching my AI business to the CEO of Boeing. In doing so, I'm marrying my love of aviation and aerospace and my knowledge, my in-depth knowledge of aerospace, with my in-depth experience in technology and artificial intelligence governance systems. Um, the other thing I would recommend is, again, whatever job assignment you do in your career, even if you get what you call your dream job, there are always aspects to a job that are sexy versus not sexy, not as fun. It doesn't matter what your job is. And so giving your all to every aspect of your job will help you to develop skills in areas that you may think are not really important, but later on become very important. For instance, 10 years ago, I worked on um, a client assignment for the Depository Trust Corp. And I wrote, I was a writer, so I wrote their policy and procedures for a regulation that regulates how this firm manages their quantitative models, something called model risk management. It's a regulation by the Federal Reserve. And I wrote the PMP. Well, it turns out that model risk management, you know, so I gave it my all. I created a really, really sharp document that was presented to the Fed. 10 years later, it turns out that model risk management is fundamental to artificial intelligence. So that one document that I created then 10 years ago, I'm now reformatting it, but presenting it to a scientific conference on Monday, where I have clients interested in leveraging this methodology. Now, you as a computer science person, you may think, oh, you know, writing is not sexy, or writing is not important, or code documentation is not important, but that's not the case. In every field, um, um, you know, what you're doing now in an area that you may think is not either important to the industry or important to your career, 5 years later could be worth $1 million contract to you. So give everything you've got right now your all. And yeah, that's how I got into my career.
Awesome. I love that. It was really amazing to hear all of that. I know I personally like learned a lot from this. So I'm hoping everyone else listening also gained something. And we have around 9 minutes left. So I'd like to open it up to, questions from anyone who's listening right now. You can either put it in the chat, which everyone can see, or you can either send your questions to me or Rachel, and we can ask the panelists. You can also direct your questions to like an individual panelist or to everyone. It's up to you. So I'd like to see if there are any questions anyone has. And if we do end up not having any questions from the participants at the moment, we can continue on with the questions that we had for the panel. Okay, so we got a question in the chat. Devki, do you want to answer that?
Yeah. Yay, I love meeting and hearing from other Girls Who Code alumni. I learned like so much from Girls Who Code, so I hope Girls Who Code had the same impact on you. And I guess to answer Michelle's question, so I was a Girls Who Code TA 1 year in like my freshman year of college, and then my sophomore and junior year, I did software engineering internships at Microsoft on their cloud database team.
The internships I did after freshman year, I was a graphic designer at a tech company in Madison. And then I was the following summer I was at Microsoft doing I think it was the Explorer role. I don't know if that's still a thing anymore or not. The team I worked on was an experimental team. We were developing a product that did not make it, but it was like a really fun experience because I got to have a say in like help shaping some of the features. After that, I was at Intuit, and then I also worked at a startup as a front-end developer for, it was like an AI chat bot, and I helped like kind of give them a bit of like a design system and a style and a logo, and helped like to develop their UI. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah, for internships in college, my first one was, so Northeastern, we have a co-op program, which is like a 6-month internship. So I did my first co-op during my sophomore year at IBM Research, and I worked on a healthcare focused team where we analyzed physician-patient conversations and pulled out like different or common like entities or structures of sentences that are commonly spoken about in physician-patient daily conversations. So that was really cool because that kind of merged my early on interests in biology and medicine with computer science. And my second co-op or 6-month internship was at this startup in Boston called Catalent, which is this marketplace that pairs MBA or like experts with people who need projects. So kind of like a consulting matching platform. And yeah, right now I work at Drift, which is not an internship, it's my full-time job.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Oh yeah, so I can repeat the question. It's in the chat and it says, what internships did you participate in college?
For me, college was so long ago, I don't remember. It was probably working with that gentleman. Yeah, I don't remember.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, of course. Are there any other questions that you would like answered? Okay, so we have another question for all of the panelists. What are some resources or services, such as Adobe or GitHub, that you've used while working?
I can go first. We use AWS to host all of our like apps and services, and also utilize like data management. We also use GitHub and Git for version control. And our tech stack is on the back end, it's Java, and on the front end is React. I find that the tech stack typically like differs based off of the company, and typically when you're first starting out, they don't really care like what languages you know when you interview. I find that like if you know one language, it's like easier to pick up other languages because all the concepts, like focusing on the concepts more than like the specifics of a language. But yeah, I think like React right now is really popular on the front end, and also like Vue.js as well. I don't know if that really answered the question of like what services, but yeah, that's what we use at Drift.
Yeah, I also use React for building prototypes. We don't usually have like a back end for the prototypes. They're mostly just like front end, like fake the functionality. For one that I worked on recently, we've used Firebase and React. And then I work with designers a lot. For a while, people usually use Sketch, and I would use Sketch like either to look at their design files or sometimes to design stuff myself. Now we kind of transitioned over to Figma, which I think is better. It's like web-based. You can like do like comments, and it's kind of like a Google Doc in that you can all interact with the design file at the same time, which is nice. We also host on AWS and also use GitHub. I think that's probably pretty common.
At Google, because it's like so big, we use like our own like version control system, which is like really similar to GitHub. We host on Google Cloud Platform, and we do analytics with like Google Analytics. Also like similar to what Sreeya said. So at Google, I like program in Go, which is like Google's language. And then back at Microsoft, I would use like C# and C++. And I did all of my interviews, like every single interview in Java. So yeah, I guess like people don't really care what language you interview in, but as long as you have one that you're proficient in, it really carries over to other languages. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I also used C# at Microsoft and came in only knowing, I think, Java. And then I didn't know React before I entered into it, but I learned it on the job and it was totally fine. So long as you have like the fundamentals, it's like easy enough to pick up other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, and so for my firm, we create policies and frameworks and perform audits for large companies. So we're not a development firm. So we use the Microsoft product suite that enables creating those types of products.
Sounds good. I love that, especially like I think it was something new to me, like the fact that you guys mentioned that you came in knowing a different language from what you ended up using on the job. I think that was really interesting. And I just wanted to ask, like, this is my own personal question, but I guess when you're looking at a job, typically there's like a job description with like each internship or something you apply to, right? So would you say that like also you like applied to internships and stuff without having like the expertise for the particular language they had, but like knowing something similar in a sense?
Yeah, I think especially if it's an internship or entry level role, or honestly like any role, if like you don't have to fit like 100% of the requirements to the T. And I feel like a lot of times with women, like we want or like we think that we need to fit every single requirement, but it doesn't hurt to apply. What like I always say, like just giving them an application or your resume, it never hurts. Like that's always the first step. um yeah, I think also like especially in internships, I think job applications are being more reasonable now, where they're like any programming experience in any programming language, but like at the bottom they'll say like we use this language, or like added bonus if you know this language. But yeah, like typically companies aren't like language specific unless like it's more like later on in your career, or if the job title is specifically like Java developer or like Python developer.